just a very beautiful place to be and a place that spoke of promise. So my memories are very fond of Mogadishu, and it's the kind of thing which has given me a special heart for the Somali people. I still say one day Somalia will rise, and when it wakes up, Africa will be like, ooh.
In this era, have you decided, this is where I want to, this is my next stage?
No, not yet, not yet. Yeah, so I'm still trying to understand myself. So Form 4 comes, the exam ends, and this coincides with the time when my father is then gets a new role in Somalia to work in adult education there.
Wow.
So my parents say, yeah, we're leaving. And I've been in, of course, in a day school all along, living in the house. So what that does is that they say this. Now, my younger brother was already in boarding school. He had gone to boarding school from Form 1, so they don't have the same issue. My little sister's also in boarding school, but I'm the one who's kind of at home. The timing isn't, perfect, but roughly this is how it happened. So now they moved to Somalia, and they say, we need to find a boarding school for you. And fortunately, it did coincide with that time. And I had the grades to go into State House Girls, which was a great change of an experience. So when you talk about stretch, that's where now I really, like, my art flourished. I was able to play the violin as part of the brand. I wrote plays. I really, really came into myself and my leadership. Yes, it was wonderful.
So you go to State House Girls to do A levels.
Yes, exactly.
From 5 and from 6.
From 5 and from 6.
Because this was
now after. Yeah.
Paint me a picture of State House Girls. Is it mixed? Are there explain? Actually, Loreto had different races, different people.
That's right.
What about State House Girls?
State House was different demographically. It was more diverse economically. It was also a national school.
Yes.
So that means that admission was broader and much more based on grades. So it was different. It was different for me because it's a very funny dynamic. But I found that the class differentials were much more stark. But I found that people were meaner to people from poorer backgrounds, from rural backgrounds. I did end up in a dynamic where I was many times standing in between and saying, that's a really harsh thing to say to somebody. Like, don't mock somebody because of their accent. And then it was funny because the dynamics were really such that we would end up in... let me give an example. So I told you that one of the things that we were told about in Musangari is that you must have the courage of your conviction. So when you have something to say, you have to, when you write down something, you have to sign it. So I remember one incident when we were, and this is not everybody, it was just one incident where we came into class one day and somebody had written something about a classmate, a very harsh personal thing about that person. And I was horrified, and I said, we can't do this. You really have to. If you write something about somebody, put your name on it, right? Yeah, like just stand up for what you believe. And I remember it became this joke where people were kind of laughing at that, right? But it was a very exciting time. It was a great growth for me. And I really did get into my creativity really came out. Whether it was the arts or it was leadership in general, I ended up really enjoying the period.
And in context, this is mid-80s?
Yeah, late
80s.
Yeah.
Okay, let me
we were one of the last classes of 844.
The
year after they moved. The last classes of 763. The year after they moved to 844. Yeah.
Okay, but you keep using this word, and it's like even my mind is refusing to shift there. But let me force it, shift there, because I'm one creative. You're proudly owning the creative tag. In that time, talking about music and things like that, that's not a career that you're being encouraged to take.
No.
That's not even a career that's going to get you anywhere in life.
Yeah, in those days.
No, of course.
Yeah, but those days.
I was a rapper for 10 years. I proudly own that as a career.
Yeah.
And it's why I'm here. Even now I'm creative. But I'm trying to say, it's showing me the kind of home that I've had people sit here and they couldn't dare utter creative, including the last leader who came here.
Yeah.
They couldn't say, I wanted to be in film or if I wanted to be in music. But with you, I'm hearing you find leadership within the creative sector.
Yes, it really helped me find my voice in a way where, even though I've explained at Musongari, there was lots of resources for all this. Somehow in State House is when I was able to bring it to the forefront and make a contribution. In Musongari, it wasn't as easy for me to bring it to the fore. I'm not sure why that was the case.
Was it because other people were as good or better?
I wonder. Or whether there was maybe a certain idea of what an artist looks like or what. I mean, I don't know. I'll think about that.
Enter the comments. Let us know.
But what I do know is I really did find my voice at State House. Yeah.
And was the followership there to the leadership?
It was wonderful. I think the thing with some of the things we were able to create is that they gave people their voice. So for example, if you create a musical and you say, the way that I want to do this is a 50% production, and everybody in that role, whether you're the person who's doing background singing, whether you're the one who's doing the set, whether you're the one who creates the set. Because I remember there was one play where it was supposed to be about a liberation movement in Namibia, and the people were running from the back of the stage through the audience, to startle them. And so somebody had to make the gun sounds outside, right? So there's this idea that to be a creative, you have to be in front of the camera, you have to be able to sing and all of that. But the thing with this industry is that it absorbs everybody, and there's a contribution to make. So that's what I mean. There were many, many people who found their creative voice at that time.
And for you, what were you doing? Were you script writing? Were you executive producing in that, given the vision of the thing, finding the different people?
Yeah.
So in an essence...
So executive production and script writing, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
I mean, in some essence, it's easier to be the actor.
It is, you know what I mean? With a narrow role.
Yes.
Yeah, I was seldom the actor, mostly the producer.
And did you enjoy it?
Oh, I loved it. Still do. Still love creating.
Yeah. What did the creative... Okay, outside of school, were you attending plays? One of the stuff that I used to do when I was in high school, and I didn't understand the privilege that was that our school would take us to Phoenix plays, and all I had to do was sign up. But I didn't understand what kind of a privilege it was to attend. And if I was to rewind life, because some people are watching this in high school, I'd attend more of them and be more present, not think it's just normal. So for you, were you in that space of outside of school engaging with the theater world?
Not as much. We did go to the theater from time to time. But for me, it was, and in those days, I think, much as it is now with young people, they do have a very creative life. They're very engaged in music. They go out and they enjoy the creative products, right? But yes, we are a theater-going family even then. The other thing I used to do is my entrepreneurship started then. Yeah, so what would happen is that if there's a popular a song, I would create a poster and I would visualize the song, whatever's happening in the song. Nobody loves me like you do. And I would draw it, and then there's a candle blowing in the wind and whatever. And then I would roll it up into something I called a love scroll, put a ribbon on it, and then I would sell these to people and people would buy them to then give to their boyfriends in other schools and all of that. So it was really a brisk business. But that was my first business of my own.
So you sell to the students, huh?
Yeah, and others. Yeah. Now, the economics of this business, looking back, I don't know if I priced my time. I'm not sure if the margin was fair, but they did sell well. So at least pricing I got right. Yeah.
Okay, where does the story then take us next? At this time, have you flown out? You've told me that your parents have gone to Somalia.
Yes.
Did you go visit them by any chance?
Yes. So every holiday we go and we are with them. So home is really Somalia at that time.
Okay, this is...
and we live in Mogadishu.
Wow. This is to talk about. I understand that because home for me was also at a time abroad. And that's happens to very few people. Where you close school, you go and stay with an auntie for one day, and then you jump on a plane. Am I right?
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah.
So
we go to Mogadishu.
Mogadishu was the first time you were leaving the context of Kenya? Or had you traveled before, after?
It's a good question. I don't think I had left before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and by now I'm, 16, 17, yeah?
Yeah. Let's also add, Mogadishu is not Nairobi City.
No, but
or was it at that time? Was there glorious.
There was no war. There was no war.
You paint this picture of Mogadishu for us.
So,
Hey, that was a nice
it was hot. It was hot, and it was smaller than Nairobi, but it was dusty, but it was vibrant. It was very, vibrant is the word to say. The very dynamic private sector, very lively and proud people, who colorful. I remember flair, I remember art, I remember music. Just a very beautiful place to be, and a place that spoke of promise. So my memories are very fond of Mogadishu, and it's the kind of thing which has given me a special heart for the Somali people. I still say one day Somalia will rise, and when it wakes up, Africa will be like, ooh, what is this? Yeah, because really it's a very impressive, it was a very impressive setup. Now, there was some challenges. For example, there were times when there was prejudice, like we would wake up in the morning and on the gate it's written, Kenyatis. That was the name they had for us. But it was a very rare thing. It wasn't like we had people who we worked with and who worked for us, and it was a great community, and a lovely house and all of that. But it wasn't... it didn't feel hostile. The other thing that it was very remarkable, and of course it's some time back now, I can just remember snippets, is that at night you could walk around 4 a.m. So it felt much safer than Nairobi. That was just a dynamic in Mogadishu I remember very closely.
And they don't have the colonial element, did they?
There was, what we did notice, for example, so because of the agriculture, there was some agricultural activity in the southern part of the country. I remember a place called Afgoi and all that used to send food up. But I do remember that was the first time where I saw, like, when you go to the market, there'd be, you know how people set out their wares? There would be cans, like cans of pasta, cans of tomato sauce. So it wasn't always agricultural produce. There was a lot of importation from Italy that was still quite a factor in the economy.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was some of the pros and cons I remember. Yeah, but hot. Very hot.
What about your friends? What's your social life like? Do people have to sacrifice their social life in this leadership journey? Or for you, what's happening in your life from a social perspective?
Oh, you're talking now?
No, then.
So my father at that time was working with the refugees, with the UN. And at that time, there was quite a network of both Somalis and international community that formed our community. So it was very, very social. But also they would sit around and talk about their work and what was working and what was not working. Because again, adult literacy was forming as a field. It's become much more mature now. But even then, I think they were trying to find their way about how this plays out specifically in Africa.
Was Kenya ahead as compared to its counterparts? By the time they're sending your father to Somalia, it's to bring that thing that has worked within Kenya.
That's right, and to tap his experience. I would say that in that area of adult literacy, the answer is yes. Yeah, because it's always hard to say is so and so ahead, right? Because in which way? But I would say certainly for adult literacy, they didn't yet have a very robust department yet, and my dad really helped them create that infrastructure. Okay, so you're traveling between there and back. Yes, that's right. There and back. You're juggling two worlds. Yes. Like, was it throughout your whole of your A-levels that happened, or even longer? No, it was the beginning of the A-levels. In fact, it started a little before the O-levels were done. Okay. So at that time, and then my mother went and joined my father after a while, and then later came back. There's a bit of a story. Okay. But then what happens then is that as this is happening, then we start to talk about university. And that's when, being the firstborn, and there's always this joke, my parents, discuss and they do some research and they say, yeah, she's going to go to the University of Oregon in the US. I had a wonderful uncle, he's still my uncle, who had been to the University of Oregon. So he with my parents together, he encouraged them, and together they agreed that that was the place I would go to, his alma mater.
Yeah.
And he even offered to support some of the costs of that in the beginning.
Wow.
So that I could go. And at that time, everybody was talking about computer science. So that was the new thing that was going to come, right? So they signed me up for computer science. And then when a lot of this was agreed, they came and decided to talk to me.
They had a Kamgunji and came and told you about
this
your
is
life path.
firstborn dynamics.
I fully relate.
Younger children, it's not usually like that. Somebody asks you along the way what you think.
I love it. Yeah. You're making me understand so much. I'm a firstborn of a firstborn.
Yeah.
Of two firstborns.
Yeah.
So do you do well?
Yes, I do well. And in fact, I'm admitted to university in the in Kenya. To go to KU. By this time, I've done French, and I'm doing at A levels. At A levels,
in status.
Yeah,
okay.
and literature and geography. So that's my path, and I get admitted to go to university in Kenya. But then before that happens, I go.
Had you been to States before?
No, I went on my own. 18 years old, just turned 18.
What year is this?
89.
1989.
Yeah.
Okay, we're coming back, and we now continue this chapter from 1989, where she goes, Maju.